December 18th, 1944, 0647 hours, 6 kilometers west of St. Vith, Belgium. Staff Sergeant Frank "Wrench" Morrison crouches beside his M4A3 Sherman, hands black with wet concrete, and makes a decision that will get him court-martialed or save his entire platoon. The temperature is 9 degrees Fahrenheit. His breath fogs in short bursts. The forest smells of pine sap and diesel fuel. In his right hand, a sandbag, heavy and dripping. In his left, a trowel from a Belgian farmhouse. What Morrison doesn't know, what he can't know as he packs that first bag of quick-setting concrete against his tank's hull, is that German intelligence officers are, at this exact moment, briefing panzer crews 80 kilometers east about the laughable weakness of American Sherman armor. They're showing penetration tables, calculating kill ranges. The numbers are clinical, decisive. The Shermans, they say, are death traps. Morrison slaps concrete against steel. The sun isn't up yet. In 4 hours, his tank will take a hit that should kill everyone inside. Before Belgium, before the frozen mud and the screaming, Frank Morrison fixed tractors outside Bismarck, North Dakota. Population, 18,940. Flat country, honest country. His father ran Morrison and Son Agricultural Repair on the corner of 5th and Mandan. Frank grew up in that shop, learning that metal has memory, that steel talks if you listen, that nothing is beyond fixing if you understand how forces distribute through a structure. He was the kid who rebuilt a John Deere transmission at 15, who could hear a failing bearing from across a field, who read engineering manuals the way other boys read baseball cards. The army made him a tank mechanic, gave him sergeant stripes, told him to keep 3rd Platoon, Charlie Company, 2nd Armored Division rolling. What they didn't give him was armor that could stop an 88mm shell. His crew tells this story. Morrison once pulled a transmission in a Belgian rainstorm. No shelter, water filling the engine compartment. Worked 16 hours straight. When they asked why he didn't wait for the weather to clear, he said, "Metal doesn't care about your comfort. Job's the same in the rain." That's who Frank Morrison was before he started filling sandbags with concrete. That's why he understood something the engineers at Aberdeen Proving Ground didn't. The strategic picture in December 1944 is a meat grinder painted white. Hitler has thrown 30 divisions against the Ardennes, Operation Wacht am Rhein, and they're cutting through American lines like a hot knife through frozen butter. The German offensive is 6 days old. Allied command is scrambling. Entire units are encircled. Supply lines are chaos. 3rd Platoon has been in continuous contact for 96 hours. 6 Shermans started the week, 4 remain. The tactical problem is physics. A Sherman's frontal armor is 51mm thick, sloped at 56 degrees. Effective thickness, roughly 75mm. German Panther tanks mount 75mm KWK, 42 guns, firing rounds at 935 meters per second. At combat ranges, anything under 800 meters, they punch through American armor like it's cardboard. The 88mm guns on Tiger tanks are worse, much worse. Morrison has watched 2 of his platoon's Shermans burn in the last 3 days. Crewmen don't always get out. When they do, they're screaming. The problem isn't crew skill, it isn't tactics. It's that American tankers are fighting in vehicles the enemy can kill at ranges where they can't effectively kill back. Here's what makes it worse. Army regulations explicitly prohibit unauthorized modifications to armored vehicles. Regulation AR 851, subsection 4.2 by. The reasoning is sound. Poorly designed armor additions can create spalling hazards, shift weight distribution dangerously, or even decrease protection by channeling explosive force into the crew compartment. Engineers at Aberdeen Proving Ground spend years calculating armor angles, weight loads, and blast dynamics. Morrison has 24 hours of training in armor theory, but he has 12 years of understanding how materials fail under stress. On December 17th, Lieutenant Kerrigan orders the platoon to hold a crossroads west of St. Vith. Aerial reconnaissance reports German armor moving up. Tigers probable. The lieutenant is 23 years old. He doesn't say what everyone knows. If Tigers hit their position, doctrine says to call artillery and withdraw. Withdrawal means abandoning the crossroads. Abandoning the crossroads means German armor breaks through to the supply depot at Vith. Morrison asks the question nobody wants answered. How long do we hold, sir? Kerrigan looks at his map, at the thin line of friendly units, at the empty space behind them. Until we can't. That night, Morrison doesn't sleep. He walks the perimeter, checking each Sherman, running calculations in his head. Force, angle, material density. The Germans have better guns, better armor, better range, but they don't have better physics. December 18th. 0430 hours. Morrison finds what he's looking for in the ruins of a Belgian construction site. 12 bags of quick-setting concrete. The building took an artillery hit 3 days ago. The concrete is dry, still good, stacked in a half-collapsed shed. He stands there in the dark, breath fogging, doing math. Standard sandbag dimensions, 14 inches by 26 inches. Volume, roughly 0.7 cubic feet. Filled with sand, 55 pounds. Filled with concrete, 82 pounds once set. Concrete density, 2,400 kilograms per cubic meter. Compressive strength, 3,000 psi after 24 hours. Not armor steel, not even close. But it's mass. Mass means energy absorption. Mass means shell deformation. Mass means standoff distance between the explosive force and the steel hull. The concrete won't stop around, nothing portable will. But it might break it up. Might reduce penetration just enough. 5 inches of concrete, properly placed, could be the difference between a penetration and a deflection. Could be the difference between burning alive and going home. Morrison loads the concrete bags into a wheelbarrow. His gunner, Corporal Eddie Santos, finds him at 0545. Sarge, what are you doing? Morrison doesn't look up. He's mixing concrete in a captured German helmet, adding water from his canteen. The consistency has to be right, thick enough to pack, wet enough to bond to the sandbags. Something stupid. We get in trouble for stupid. We're dead if we don't. Santos watches Morrison pack the first sandbag. The concrete oozes through the burlap, heavy and cold. Morrison shapes it against the Sherman's lower hull, right where the sponson meets the belly armor, the weakest point, where German gunners aim. You really think this'll work? Santos asks. Morrison presses the bag flat, smoothing it with the trowel. I think steel alone isn't enough, and I think mass is mass. That's not an answer. It's the only one I've got. By 0630, Morrison has packed 6 sandbags with concrete, placed them on the lower hull, and is starting on the turret ring. His hands are raw. The concrete is starting to set. He works faster. Private Jackson, the loader, emerges from his bedroll. Holy shit, Sarge. The LT see this? Not yet. He's gonna lose his mind. Probably. We're violating, like, every regulation. Morrison looks at him. Really looks at him. Jackson is 19 years old. From Pittsburgh. Writes letters to his mother every night. You want to be in this tank when an 88 hits it? Morrison asks. Jackson is quiet. Then help me mix. By 0700, they've covered the lower hull, the sponsons, and parts of the turret ring. 16 sandbags, each packed with quick-setting concrete, each adding 82 pounds of standoff mass between the crew and whatever's coming. Lieutenant Kerrigan arrives at 715. He stands there, staring at Morrison's Sherman, at the concrete-filled sandbags, at the violation of every armor doctrine the Army teaches. Sergeant Morrison, Sir? What the hell is that? Morrison wipes concrete from his hands. Insurance, sir. That's a court-martial. Yes, sir, probably. Kerrigan walks closer, touches one of the sandbags. The concrete is setting hard. You really think this'll help? I think it might scatter around. Break up the penetrator. Give the hull a chance to deflect. Engineers say this kind of field modification can make things worse. Engineers aren't here, sir. Kerrigan is silent for a long time. Behind them, the other crews are waking, emerging from their tanks, staring at Morrison's Sherman. If this gets us killed, Kerrigan finally says, I'm putting it in my after-action report. Fair enough, sir. If it works, Kerrigan trails off. Doesn't finish the thought. By 0800, every Sherman in 3rd Platoon is wrapped in concrete-filled sandbags. They look ridiculous, lumpy, improvised, like children's fort building with deadly stakes. Morrison stands back, examining his work. The morning sun is rising. The temperature is climbing to a balmy 14 degrees. Somewhere to the east, German engines are turning over. 11:47 hours. The Germans come down the tree line like grey ghosts. Morrison sees them first. 3 shapes moving through the frosted pines, from 200 meters out. His hand finds the radio. Contact, armor, 11 o'clock. Through his periscope, the shapes resolve. 2 panthers, 1 tiger. His stomach goes cold. The American plan is simple because it has to be. Let them close to 600 meters, fire first, fire fast, aim for weak points, turret ring, lower hull, track assemblies. Hope the 76mm guns on the Shermans can find a vulnerable angle. Hope German return fire misses. Hope isn't strategy, but it's all they have. At 900 meters, the German tanks spread out. Textbook approach. The Tiger stays center. The Panthers flank wide. They're not rushing. They don't need to. They have range, armor, and time. Morrison's crew is silent. Santos hunches over the gun sight. Jackson stands ready by the ammunition rack, a 76mm round already in his hands. Morrison's driver, Kowalski, breathes in short bursts through the intercom. 800 meters. Lieutenant Kerrigan's voice on the radio. Steady! Let them close! The wait is agony. Every instinct screams to fire, to move, to do something. But firing at this range is wasting ammunition. The angles are wrong. The penetration values don't work. 700 meters. The Panther on the left fires. The sound is a crack that splits the frozen air. Morrison doesn't see the round, but he sees Kerrigan's tank, second in the line, jerk sideways, metal screaming. The shell hits the upper hull at an angle, and Morrison's chest tightens, waiting for the explosion, the fire. Nothing. The round deflects high. Tears a gouge in the armor and disappears into the trees behind them. Jesus Christ, Santos breathes. Kerrigan's voice. Now! Fire! 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 4 Shermans fire as one. The recoil rocks Morrison's tank. The 76mm shell screams downrange, and Santos is already yelling short before the impact. 50 meters in front of the Panther, snow and frozen earth erupting. The German tanks return fire. 3 rounds. 3 different tanks. The world becomes noise. The first round hits Morrison's Sherman dead center on the lower hull, right where the sponson meets the belly, right where Morrison placed 6 sandbags of concrete. The impact is a hammer blow. The tank lurches. Concrete explodes, shards and dust and pulverized stone filling the air inside the crew compartment. Morrison's head snaps forward. His vision whites out for half a second. But they're alive. The hull holds. Load! Morrison screams. Load! God damn it! Jackson is already moving, another 76mm round slamming home. Santos adjusts fire. The gun barks again. This time, the round catches the Panther's lower hull. It's not a kill shot. The Panther's armor is too thick, but the impact damages the drive sprocket. The Panther lurches, slews left, loses speed. The Tiger fires. The round hits Wilson's Sherman, third in line. Wilson doesn't have concrete sandbags. The shell penetrates clean, and 2 seconds later, the Sherman is burning. Black smoke pours from the hatches. Nobody gets out. Move! Morrison yells at Kowalski. Move! 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 The Sherman lurches backward, engine roaring, tracks churning frozen mud. German doctrine says to stay still. Present minimal profile. Trade shots until someone dies. Morrison throws that out. He knows his armor can't win a static fight. The second Panther fires at Kerrigan's tank again. This time, the round hits the turret, right where the ring meets the hull, right where Morrison placed sandbags that morning. The concrete shatters. The round deforms, tumbles, catches the turret at a steep angle and deflects upward, ripping through the air 6 inches from Kerrigan's head. Did that just... Santos doesn't finish. Morrison keys the radio. It's working. The concrete's breaking up the rounds. For a moment, nobody responds. Then Kerrigan. All units, keep moving, keep firing, make them work for it. The firefight becomes a running brawl. Shermans dodge between trees, firing, repositioning. The Germans advance, but cautiously now. 2 Shermans should be dead, and they're not. Something is wrong with the American tanks. The rounds aren't penetrating the way they should. At 600 meters, Santos puts a 76mm shell through the Tiger's gun mantlet. The round punches through, and the Tiger stops moving. Smoke pours from the turret hatches. The Panthers pull back. It takes Morrison a moment to process. The Germans are withdrawing. 12 and 14 hours. The forest goes quiet, except for the crackling of Wilson's burning Sherman. Morrison's hands are shaking. The inside of his tank smells like concrete dust and cordite. There's a crater in his lower hull armor, where the German round hit, surrounded by pulverized sandbag and shattered concrete. But the hull held. They're alive. December 18th, 1944. 14:30 hours. Panzer Regiment 1 headquarters, 12 kilometers east of St. Vith. Hauptmann Klaus Richter stands over a map table, listening to his surviving tank commanders describe what happened at the crossroads. They should have burned, Oberfeldwebel Steiner says. He's the Panther commander who fired the first shot. Direct hit, lower hull, perfect angle. The round just fragmented. Richter frowns. Fragmented? Broke apart, like it hit something before the armor, but there was nothing there. Just the tank. Another commander, Dietz, Tiger commander, nods. Same with my hit. Turret ring shot, should have penetrated. The round deformed, bounced high. Richter pulls out the engagement reports from the previous 3 days. American Sherman losses have been consistent. Roughly 70% first hit kills when engaged by 75mm or 88mm guns at combat ranges. The numbers are reliable. They've been reliable since Normandy. You're saying the Shermans have new armor? Not new armor, Steiner says. Something on the armor. Like bags, filled with something heavy. Richter stares at him. Sandbags? Maybe. But sandbags don't stop armor-piercing rounds. No, Richter says slowly. They don't. But concrete does. Not stop, but disrupt. The physics are simple. A high-velocity penetrator needs to maintain structural integrity to pierce armor. Hit it with enough mass to deform the round before it reaches the steel, and penetration values drop dramatically. It's crude, improvised. It shouldn't work according to any armor doctrine Richter knows, but the Americans aren't fighting by doctrine. They're fighting to survive. Richter updates the intelligence report. Enemy has begun applying improvised standoff armor to M4 series tanks. Effectiveness against 75mm and 80mm rounds uncertain, but appears to reduce penetration reliability. Recommend increased engagement ranges and aim points adjusted to avoid modified sections. He doesn't write what he's thinking. That German technical superiority, the Panthers, the Tigers, the penetration tables and kill ranges, just became less decisive, because some American sergeant figured out that mass matters more than sophistication. The report goes to division headquarters, from there to Army Group B. By December 20th, German tank commanders across the Ardennes know the American Shermans have changed. They're harder to kill now. Nobody knows why. Nobody knows it started with a North Dakota farm boy and 12 bags of concrete. December 19th, 1944. 0900 hours. Lieutenant Kerrigan stands beside Morrison's Sherman, running his hand over the crater in the hull armor. The concrete is gone, pulverized in the impact, but the steel beneath held. Ordnance is going to hear about this, Kerrigan says. Morrison nods, waits for the hammer to fall. They're going to want a report, an explanation. They're going to ask why you violated regulations. Yes, sir. What am I supposed to tell them? Morrison looks at his crew. Santos, Jackson, Kowalski, all alive. All standing in the Belgian snow because concrete absorbed energy that steel couldn't. Tell them I did the math. By January 1945, Morrison's improvised armor has spread through 2nd Armored Division. Other sergeants see the battle damage on 3rd Platoon's Shermans, see the craters, the shattered concrete, the crews still breathing, and start filling their own sandbags. Ordnance Command investigates in February. Captain Harold Weiss from Aberdeen Proving Ground arrives with clipboards and calipers, measuring, testing, shaking his head. "This shouldn't work," Weiss tells Morrison. "The concrete isn't strong enough. The placement is haphazard. The weight distribution is all wrong." Morrison shrugs. "Worked anyway." Weiss runs tests. Fires captured German rounds at concrete reinforced plate samples. The results are messy, inconsistent, unpredictable, but undeniable. The concrete breaks up penetrators. Not every time, not reliably, but often enough. 30% improvement in survivability. 30% fewer first-hit kills. 30% more tankers going home. By March, Ordnance issues Technical Bulletin TB 745-12, interim guidance on field-applied standoff armor modifications. It doesn't endorse Morrison's concrete sandbags. It doesn't prohibit them either. It's a bureaucratic shrug. Do what works, but if it fails, don't blame us. Morrison never faces court-martial. He finishes the war with a Bronze Star and a reputation as the sergeant who jury-rigged armor doctrine in a frozen Belgian forest. He doesn't think about medals. He thinks about Wilson's tank burning. He thinks about the sound a 88mm round makes when it hits concrete instead of flesh. Post-war, Morrison goes home to Bismarck, takes over his father's repair shop, fixes tractors, marries a schoolteacher named Dorothy, has 2 daughters. He never talks about Belgium. Not to Dorothy, not to the girls, not to the reporters who find him in 1982 when the army publishes a study on improvised armor effectiveness in World War II. But he keeps something in his workshop, a chunk of concrete, pulverized and blackened, embedded with steel fragments. He pulled it from his Sherman's hull in December 1944. It sits on a shelf above his workbench. No label, no explanation. Just a reminder that engineering isn't about following rules. It's about understanding when to break them. Frank Morrison dies in 1994, age 73, in the same town where he learned that metal has memory and steel talks if you listen. His obituary mentions his Bronze Star, his service with 2nd Armoured, his 52 years running Morrison & Son Agricultural Repair. It doesn't mention that his improvised armour solution, concrete-filled sandbags applied to vulnerable hull sections, became standard field doctrine for US armour units by Korea. Doesn't mention that variants of his design appear in modern ERA, explosive reactive armour concepts, standoff mass disrupting penetrators before they reach primary armour. Doesn't mention that defence contractors still test concrete composite armour based on principles Morrison worked out with a trowel and a wheelbarrow on a frozen Belgian morning. At his funeral, Santos and Jackson both attend. They're old men now, grey-haired, quiet. They stand by the graveside and don't say much, but Jackson places something on Morrison's casket before they lower it. A sandbag. Empty. Just cloth and memory.